I'm here to talk to you about the New Hampshire's Main Street. We actually had this trademarked after the project because we were so happy with how it turned out. So to understand our project, you have to have a little bit of background first, because we had this little mini building boom actually happening, ironically enough, during the Great Recession. So between '07 and '11, we had 300,000 square feet of new commercial space developed in one area, South Main Street. And if folks, who's familiar with Concord here? Okay, great. This is wonderful, great crowd. So South Main Street used to be, 10 years ago, you'd look on South Main Street and you would compare it to North Main Street and your reaction would be, ooh, that's gonna take a long time to redevelop. But all of a sudden we started seeing this happen, and this was largely driven by one project, which is this project right here, the Capitol Commons office building development, which was a partnership between a Portsmouth-based developer and the city of Concord. So we built a parking garage. I know in Complete Streets terminology, car orientation is not exactly where we want to go, but in this particular part of the year, this particular part of history, excuse me, that actually helped this project materialize, because the garage was overbuilt purposely to allow for other redevelopment in the corridor. And so in 2009, Steve Dupree, a local developer, built the Smile Building on South Main Street. He loved that experience so much that he built the Love Your Neighbor building right next door to it, and he used the parking from our garage and other incentives to make that happen. So the result was, in this 4-year period, now we've got 3 brand new shiny buildings in a very small area, which is wonderful. But who here has ever renovated their house? Okay, you renovate your, like, one room, usually the kitchen or the bathroom, right? You renovate, and what's the reaction when you look at the rest of your house now? All right? So this is what happened here. So great new shiny buildings. Now we look at Main Street, we're like, everybody kept saying the same thing. Oh my God, it's so tired. It's just so tired. And to have you understand what that means, this is Main Street in 2014. This is North Main Street. So you see the 4 lanes of traffic, the long crosswalks without any really refuge for the pedestrians. Cobra head lighting, right? The lighting was oriented towards the car. This is all about cars, right? This is 2014. This is 1960 something. This is the 1960s. It looks awfully familiar, doesn't it? Not much has changed in Main Street. So here we go, 4 lanes of traffic. There's your crosswalk. There's your narrow sidewalk. And there's your Cobra head light, street light. So the community said, we really got to do something here. We have to change this, because we're also changing, and there's more people, there's an orientation more towards pedestrian activity, orientation also more to cycling, accessibility, all kinds of other issues were coming to a confluence here. So that led up to 2012, when we applied for a Tiger Grant, and I'd like to recognize Jamie Sikora here with Federal Highway. Jamie was great in helping us after once we were awarded the grant. So congratulations to Jamie and all the success, and thank you very much. So we actually applied twice. We didn't get it the first time, but the second time we got it. So we received nearly $5 million of federal funds, and then as the process evolved, we also received nearly $600,000 of Community Development Investment Program tax credits. And then we're going to talk about the public process here. So with the public process, initially the project was like, oh yeah, it's $5 million, that's not too bad. And then as the process evolved, it became $14 million. That was pretty much the final price tag, because the community was really involved and really wanted this to be a masterpiece, if you will. So early on, right after we were awarded these dollars from the federal government, we created a project advisory committee. The committee met twice a week for 6 weeks. And this committee came up with a broad concept of what we wanted to look like, what was our aspirational goal. And from that conclusion, we generated this rendering, which we ended up using for all our other public meetings going forward. And so this is what we thought we wanted. We didn't want to have the emphasis on the cars anymore, right? So we wanted to have, we basically got rid of half the lanes. We knew we wanted to make it safer for pedestrians. So we had bump outs, we had wider sidewalks, we also had pedestrian scale lighting, and we wanted to be engaging. Going back to Will's point, it's all about economic development. I used to be an economic development director, so I have this bias. It's all about economic development, I agree. So you want it to be engaging so people will come down to downtown, spend time, buy something. Please buy something, right? So that's what we all wanted to see, but how are we going to get there? So the challenge with a project of this scope is that it's on it's a downtown area. We had over 200 businesses in the work zone, if you count all the offices and the retail spaces as well. The council, the city council, was very sensitive to making sure that everybody had a say in how this project was going to develop. And so what that meant is that we wanted a process where we were fostering players, not spectators. Because the folks up here in the top left, the spectators, they go to the game, they spend a couple hours, they cheer, they jeer, and then they go home. That's pretty much the extent of their commitment to the team. Whereas the players, they're in it for the long run, right? They got to practice, they got to train, they got to play well because their performance dictates how the outcome will be. And that's what we wanted in this process. We want people to have that influence in the project and be part of it. So what we did is the first step is we hired a communications firm, which at the time was unheard of for the city of Concord. Turned out to be the best decision you can ever possibly make with this project, right? So we hired Lewis Carno and Company out of Concord. We created this strategy of outreach, which was multi-platform strategy. And then we ended up having over 70 public meetings. In case you heard that incorrectly, 70 public meetings, which with hindsight now seems like, oh, that wasn't too bad. At the time, it took 3 years. Initially, so I'm a staff person. Initially, when we started laying out this public process, we were like, oh my God, are we ever going to get this thing built? We just have this fear of how this is going to evolve. But it turned out to flow really well because everybody worked in earnest to make sure that all the different viewpoints were incorporated to make a project that ultimately became very unique. And unique not just in the outcome, but unique also in how we built it. So the construction approach. The number one priority for us in this project was not to disrupt business downtown. We did not want to disrupt business downtown. Now imagine you have a project where you're going to tear up the entire Main Street, so how do you not disrupt business? We did it by having this sort of very creative approach to building. We broke up Main Street into quadrants. So we took the east side and the west side of North Main Street and the east side and the west side of South Main Street. And we only were going to build in one quadrant at a time. And not only that, but we were going to build the entire project in that quadrant. So from the first shovel in the ground until it was 100% complete in that quadrant. And then and only then were we going to move to the other side of the street. So that approach had two outcomes. The first we anticipated and we were happy that we had, which is it did definitely minimize the inconvenience to the business community and to the visitors downtown. The second approach is a complete surprise. By doing it that way, and you finish one quadrant, it became the best marketing tool we could have ever hoped for, because the entire community now saw what the project would actually look like in a microcosm, and the people got very excited about it, to the point that we actually had 13 new businesses open during construction. Who here has ever run one of these construction projects? Okay? Usually the goal in a commercial area is what? You don't want to lose a business, right? That's like, please don't lose a business. And you know what's going to happen, right? There's going to be a business that's going to close. They've probably been in bankruptcy for years, and they're going to blame you for their closure. We get that. We anticipated that would happen. But getting 13 new businesses, no one counted on. So that was really telling for us that this was something completely different. So the project, turned out the way it is. I'm sure a lot of you are familiar with it. So before, this is North Main Street before. Of course, very narrow sidewalk, lots of clutter. Then you see North Main Street after. Wide sidewalk, street level lighting, opportunities for outdoor dining. Those were some of the biggest topics of discussion for us. We wanted to have that energy, again, on the sidewalk, where if you visit a community, right, and you see people outdoors on the sidewalk and they're dining and they're having drinks, etc., you're more inclined to stop, get out, and interact, right, and again, spend money. So those are all critical things. This is the west side of North Main Street. So before, we used to have something very fondly referred to as the double-step curb. Folks remember the double-step curb? That was interesting. So if you are mobility challenged and you happen to park your car somewhere in the middle here, or you're just having to cross here illegally, which happens, you have to go all the way to the end of the block to get to the tip down and make your way onto the sidewalk. So it was a very challenging arrangement for the public in terms of access. And as we were doing the project and preparing this public process, we also heard from folks, listen, besides outdoor dining, besides all these other improvements you're going to make, how about some public art? Because public art is another feature that attracts people to your community. It makes you want to stay and spend some time. So we actually engineered into the plan spaces for public art. And we have a very robust public art program now in partnership with the Chamber of Commerce. So these are 3 of the pieces that we currently have out there now. I think there's maybe 5 or 6 of them in our downtown. So with the success of the project, we were recognized regionally nationally in an ARP, national publication here. We ended up winning 7 awards, both regional and national, and I also have to give credit to McFarland Johnson. I said Brian Coburn was here, there he is in the back, because they were our engineers, our general contracting engineers on this project. They did a great job for us. As well as our staff, Rob Mack, traffic engineer, and our city engineer, who's Ed Robersh, who's since left us, but did an outstanding job. So, the awards. So we won those 7 awards. We were very happy, but the 7 awards largely were because the project accomplished some key elements, right? Key elements in the complete street paradigm. Accessibility being one of the principal ones. So not only were we wanting to make the sidewalk accessible for the public, for example, getting rid of that double-step curb, but we also wanted to make our private buildings accessible. So we were very ambitious. We had 18 storefronts in our work zone that we knew prior to the project typically they had 1 or 2 granite steps. They weren't completely accessible. And the community, made a commitment that said, we're going to make all 18 of these storefronts accessible with this project. So how do we do that? Well, do a lot of creative things on the sidewalk here. For example, this is Phoenix Hall, and there's 3 storefronts here which used to have steps. Well, we built basically a platform here. Serves two results, right? Accessibility, and secondly, great, cool spot for outdoor dining, right? Here's Warren Street and Main Street. This is the Vision Shop. We worked with the property owner here. We built a ramp on the Warren Street side, and he had a window here, and he cooperated with us by putting in a door, so it provides accessibility there as well. At the end of the day, and this project was concluded, we managed to make 15 of the 18 storefronts accessible. So we were a little disappointed we didn't get the final 3. The final 3 were all actually in one building, the Eagle Hotel, which is right across from the State House. So we couldn't get those done because the owner of the Eagle Hotel was not local, and they would have had to make some improvements to their building, so things didn't line up in time. I'm happy to say, though, that building has since been sold, and the new owner is making these accessibility improvements right now. So the entire project will be accessible. And as part of the Main Street project, we also wanted to have a community banner program because it was another element, again, to make this a civic square, if you will, for all of our community groups. Concord has a lot of community groups because we're the state capital. So that was important to us. Besides the lamppost banners, we also put in a cross-street banner. By the way, I learned this. If you want to do a cross-street banner and you have engineers design the pedestals, you prepare to have like 20 trucks of cement have to come in. I mean, it looks like you're building a stadium. For the footings. So I learned that. I just assumed you just put a couple of sticks in the ground and that would be fine, but apparently not. So just a word of caution to you trying to do cross-street banners. Now, one of the other sort of offshoots of the success of the project is we've gotten a lot of interest in housing. So to give you sort of the context, for at least 10, if not 20 years, the city, and the city council in particular, had wanted to incentivize market rate housing in our Main Street area because they looked at all those great vintage 1800 buildings on Main Street, and the first floors were doing okay. They look upstairs to the 2nd, 3rd, or 4th floors, and they're empty. And these are buildings that historically had been residential, like rooming houses, and hotels, and things like that over 100 years ago. And the city council did everything in its power to incentivize market rate residential. I mean, we changed our building code. We adopted RSA 79E. We were the first city in the state to adopt 79E, which is a tax incentive package, a tax relief package for development. We also, by the way, adopted our complete street policy back in 2008, if I'm not mistaken, so just a little aside there. But we did all these things, and yet we still were not getting the market rate housing that we really wanted. Then we do the Main Street project, and now all of a sudden the floodgates are open. We're starting to see some really great projects. So this one I want to talk about is known as Remy Blocks today. Used to be known as the Vegas Block. This is the corner of North Main Street and Loudon Road. By the way, this is the building with the balconies. The people get it now, right? So this building, back in 2008, when it was known as the Vegas Block under prior ownership, I was involved in condemning this building because it was in such deplorable condition. We condemned the building. State Fire Marshal was also involved. Fast forward, new owner invests $5 million in the project, puts in 25 market rate apartments, and they look like this. And before, this building was all cut up. Squatters had gotten in there, had cut it up into chunks. I mean, it was a disaster. So now you got this in its place. So that's a success story for us and for the community. We're also starting to see new developers now enter the marketplace. So for years, Concord's had a pretty steady reputation as doing public-private partnerships and working with local developers, but it's always nice to get new blood. Provides for some creativity, a little bit of competition doesn't hurt as well. So now, because of the project, we're starting to see folks from out of the area. So Elm Grove out of Manchester, they've bought 4 buildings just off of Main Street, and they're doing everything from mini lofts, which I learned. I never knew what that was, but it's really cool. If you get a chance to tour one of these, they're awesome. So mini lofts to 3-bedroom apartments, and everything in between, and also office space and retail. And these are also buildings that were in some significant decay in our community. The Eagle Hotel, just mentioned that a couple of minutes ago. Remember the Eagle Hotel with the 3 inaccessible spaces? Well, the new owners are renovating this whole building. They're also converting the first floor to make it more of a dining area in the middle there. And they're also, the same group acquired the former CDFA, not the former, but the buildings that used to belong to CDFA on Dixon Avenue, and they're putting in some residential as well as maintaining some office uses there as well. So that's going on. And not to be left out of the real estate business, the city of Concord also bought a building. So, and you haven't lived until you own an old building, by the way, on Main Street. It's a gift that keeps giving. And so we bought this thing. How many people like the architecture, by the way? Okay. That's usually the reaction we get, but there's always one person in the back that says, I love it. So this building, the former Employment Security Building, the City of Concord purchased it. We purchased it because we want, it's a pivotal building on Main Street. If you're familiar with Main Street, South Main in particular, it's right at the bend. It's got the most prominent location in probably in the entire city in terms of what you can see. You can see the State House, you can see everything from this building. So we wanted to make sure that it was developed in the proper way. And we have a purchase and sale agreement with Del Sol developers out of Woburn, Mass. to build 125 market rate apartments and 5,000 square feet of retail on the first floor. So we're hoping that this gets built in the next year. Concord Theater. Anybody see a movie in the old Concord Theater? A couple of people, right? There's a great picture. If you go online, you type in, you Google Concord Theater, you see the marquee, and I think it may have been the last movie they played. It was Pretty in Pink back in the 1980s, and that's when it closed, so it's kind of cool. I wanted to actually include it in the slide, but I didn't get a chance to fit it in. But this building it's across from the Capitol Commons office building. It's largely been abandoned for 30 years. Capitol Center for the Performing Arts has a great theater, right? 1,800 seats, I think it is. But they have a demand for a lot of performances where you just need 300 or 400 seats. And they really didn't have an adequate venue for that. So they worked with Steve Duprig and the local developer. He acquired this building on their behalf. It's now under construction, and they're building this. So we're hoping to have this open next year. And then there's some really cool stuff, right? That's already cool, I think, as it is, but you've got other uses. So we have, concurrent with the Main Street project, the Catholic Church was disposing of 2 churches in Concord, which I was a parishioner of this general area, so there's disappointment obviously when that happens, but at least the flip side was, rather than losing the church, can we do something with the church? And we had a developer by the name of John Chorlian that actually acquired this. He saw what Main Street was happening there. He was very excited. Acquired the church and built 10 high-end condos, which anecdotally I'm told sold all in a matter of probably 48 hours. So, and he probably could have sold them 3 times over. So and this is 2 blocks west of Main Street. And then even other governments jumped into the fray. So the courthouse project. So for years, the courthouse had outgrown its facility on North Main Street, and there was discussion about moving it to this campus actually here at Hazen Drive. The mayor and council were opposed to that because they felt it would create a vacuum effect on Main Street. They wanted to keep it downtown. The Chamber of Commerce was also opposed, as were several leading business people. So they were lobbying and working out deals, trying to keep the courthouse on Main Street. And at the same time, the Main Street project was being built. So I think, can't take direct credit for this, but I think there's a confluence there again, where they everything lined up really well. The Main Street project and this courthouse actually was kept in downtown. This is the new courthouse. This just opened this past week, actually, because pictures from about 2 weeks ago. So again, another use that, were it not for the project, who knows if it would have come to fruition. And the last use, the latest, is actually a 55-plus housing development, a market rate housing development that was approved on Wednesday night at the planning board. And this is going to be located right next to City Hall in Concord, and our City Hall is 2 blocks west of Main Street. So I want to leave you with this slide because I think this is probably the most telling in terms of data we have. So our ground floor commercial vacancy. So we do a study every year where we count all the stores up and down Main Street and all over downtown actually. And we figure out how many are open, how many closed, and we kind of track the rate. Prior to the Main Street project, the rate was 10.9%. So 10.9% of the stores, nearly 11%, were vacant at the time. In 2017, it's the first full year after construction, that vacancy rate dropped by half, so 5.5% at that point. So to us, that was a great sign. I mean, that's showing that there's a lot of energy. And to the question inevitably I'm going to get in terms of assessed value, we don't have a real good handle yet on the assessed value piece because a lot of the projects are still in flux. So these construction projects, residential projects, the Concord Theaters of the world, et cetera, these things are being built now. But I would imagine, yes, the values will go up. And I would also say, for example, when you're looking at like a Remy block that was condemned, I mean, it was condemned. It had very little value just 8 years ago. And now you're talking about a building that has 25 apartments. So there are definitely increases there. We're going to have to quantify those as we go forward. And just to conclude, so we had, if you take all the units that we are projected, we have 200 plus units now that are either being built or in the pipeline to be built in the next year to 18 months. And I remind you, it took decades for the council saying we want to have this out, we want market rate housing, we want market rate housing, and it took a complete streets project to make it happen. So definitely to Will's point, it is about economic development, but you can meld the two together and accomplish a proliferation of goals.